allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, Mrs. Brahonsky.
Mrs. Kozar? Here. Mr. Laser? Mr. Locascio?
Here.
Mrs. Maines? Here. Mr. Music? Mr. Larson?
Here.
Mr. Palmer? Dr. Zorich? Mr. Howard?
Here. I'd like to inform the public that prior to this meeting, we had an executive session to discuss legal and personnel issues. I'll now open the floor up to hearing visitors part 1. This is where you can come to the podium, state your name and address, and speak of anything that's on the agenda for this evening. Seeing no one, solicitors report.
No report, Mr.
Mr. President, I have a question for Mr. Naples.
I'll go back one step. Move for adoption of resolution number 167. That's the approval of the minutes.
Second.
Motion on the floor and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion passes. The solicitor's report. There's no
No
report.
report.
Yes, Mr. Naples, I do have a question. That's okay. No, why we do not open up our bids at a public meeting?
Excuse me.
Why we do not open bids at our public meeting?
Well, I know that we open certain bids at public meeting. I don't know that we open all of them. I don't know that there was a particular reason one way or the other.
Not sure it helps, but we do advertise.
Yeah.
I
And
know
we
that.
do, yeah, we notify the public they can attend those bid openings if they're interested.
Yeah. I mean, they always have. And a lot of our bid openings on the bidder contracts are at public meetings. All of our construction bids are open at public meetings.
But I'm not sure if you meant Mr. O'Rourke at this meeting. We don't do it here, but we'll do it in central administration. We'll say that, bids will be accepted until 2 o'clock on Friday, February 22nd. And anybody who's interested can attend. And then we open it up and read off results.
Yeah.
We do.
Okay.
And sometimes people do come to the bid openings. And, other times people come and they make sure that no more bids come in and things like that.
Okay.
Oh, and I'm sorry, one more thing, Mr. President, and we don't, if let's say that the business office is accepting those bids, I never open those just by myself. They're open normally with multiple people, so there's more than one person in the room verifying, for accuracy purposes, those sorts of things.
Okay, I do have a recommendation, and you can take it for what it is or what. I kind of think there should probably be a board member present, especially when it deals with, for example, if it deals with facilities, there should probably be somebody that's on that committee there. That's just my opinion.
Yeah, and that's good to know. But just for everybody's knowledge, after we do open those, we put them on a sheet where we summarize all those bid results, and then they are presented to the committees, which are made up of those board members, what those results are, and they're made available if anybody wants to inspect them. So,
And I would say, and I don't want to speak out of school because I haven't looked at it, but just asked the question. But in my 37 years, I can't remember ever having a bid challenged. There may have been, but I honestly can't remember anyone ever challenging. I know that on one occasion, somebody asked about our procedures and how the procedures had happened, and something had been turned in late, and we didn't allow it in. But I don't think that we've ever had a challenge. I could be wrong about that, but I can't remember.
Thank you.
Education planning, Mrs. Maines.
Thank you. I will move for adoption of resolution number 168, and that's to approve a settlement agreement and release regarding student number 01 due process matter.
Second.
A motion on the floor and second. Questions or comments on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And that motion passes.
And we have a curriculum committee meeting coming up in March, on March 19th at 5:30 p.m. here in the CSC. We'll be talking about new courses for next year and new textbooks.
Thank you, Mrs. Mays. Finance, I move for adopt, I'm going to bundle resolution 169, 170 together. I move for adoption of the treasurer's report, anything to do.
Second.
The motion on the floor and second. Questions or comments on the motion? All in favor? Opposed? That motion passes. I move for adoption of resolution number 171, approve the E-rate internet agreement.
Second.
The motion on the floor and second. Questions or comments on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And that motion passes. I move for adoption of resolution number 172, gifts, grants, and donations as listed.
Second.
A motion on the floor and second. Questions or comments on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And that motion passes. Our Finance Committee meeting minutes of February 12th are attached, and our next Finance Committee meeting will be Tuesday, March 12th at 5:30 here at the Senior High School Library. Facilities Operation and Planning, I don't know if this ever happened before, but we have no report. The next Facilities Operation and Planning Committee meeting will be Thursday, March 7th, 3:30 at the admin building. Student Activities and Recreation, Mrs. Mays.
Yes, I have no report. The next athletic committee meeting will be held in March, but the date is to be determined.
Thank you, Mrs. Mays. Community Relations, at your seat, you'll see the 2018 annual report for the Greater Latrobe School District and Latrobe Park and Rec Commission. And next Latrobe Park and Rec Commission meeting will be Thursday, February 21st, 4:30 p.m. at the Latrobe Municipal Building Green Room. Intermediate unit, Mrs. Mays.
Thank you. I'll move for adoption of resolution number 173 to approve participation in the WIU Joint Purchasing Consortium for the 1920 school year, authorization for multi-purpose paper bid.
Second.
We have a motion on the floor and second. Questions or comments on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And that motion passes.
I also move for adoption of resolution number 174 to approve an approved nomination and alternate to the Westmoreland County Committee on Legislative Action, known as COLA. Mrs. Kozar will be the representative, and I will be the alternate.
Second. Second.
A motion on the floor and second. Questions or comments on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And that motion passes.
I also move for adoption of resolution number 175 to approve the WIU Step Up Westmoreland and Support Resolution.
Second.
We have a motion on the floor and second. Questions or comments on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And that motion passes.
The next WIU committee meeting will be held Tuesday, February 26th at 7 p.m. in the Fort Living Room. That's all I have.
Thank you. EWCTC Joint Operating Committee meeting. Hi, Ms. Kozar, would you please do that?
Sure. The open house is this Thursday from 5 to 7:30. And our next EWCTC meeting is February 27th at 7 o'clock. That concludes my report.
Thank you, Mrs. Mays. For policy liaison, Mrs. Mays.
I had a comment on the joint operating committee, Mr. Hauser. May I?
Yeah.
Thank you. Last Thursday, I took a tour of the EWCTC facility with Judy and also the director and the principal.
Chris Campbell and Scott Chow.
Yeah. And I came away with the building itself does need, it's in desperate need of repairs. And I'm sure you know that, and it's actually been brought to our attention before. And the reason I bring it up, excuse me, we recently sold the old LES for $450,000. I'd like to make a recommendation that we take that money that actually, from the sale of the school, and actually put that into a capital building fund for the center. And I know that there's going to be a feasibility study. It's in the process now, and we were told that it's probably going to be, it's going to take until the summertime to actually have it completed. But I'd like to see this board actually step to the plate and actually put money, you know, into a fund where we can use it to further the education of the students that are actually going there. That's a recommendation I'd like to make. And I have something else I'd like to add too.
Mike, before we do, can I ask a question regarding that?
Yes.
What would happen if we put that money into, we earmarked it to a capital fund, but then when it came time to actually do, have a vote, if the other schools vote no, not to do anything, then is that money then trapped in that account and we can't use it for anything then? I don't know.
No, so as we talked at the finance committee, what I would recommend is we transfer to a capital reserve fund, and then it's sort of open-ended. We might designate it for EWCTC and any building projects that might come out of the feasibility study for the CTC, but if it didn't get support from the JOC, it would still be in our capital reserve fund, and we could reallocate that to facility needs within our own school district.
Well, where I have my problem is, say that the JOC comes back and says, you know, the other schools do not want to participate. I think we're at the point where we have to do something. You know, there's a lack of skilled labor in western Pennsylvania, in the greater Latrobe area. You know, I think it's time. I can't control the Ligonier School District or the Dairy School District, but we can control right here.
But you're going to go to the taxpayers in Latrobe and say you're footing the whole bill for Dairy and Ligonier's kids? I don't know how that's going to fly.
Well,
I mean, I agree with you. The facilities are a mess and need to be renovated. Nothing's been done for decades. And, you know, their mechanicals are pretty tired. I mean, I'm there every month. I get it.
I understand that.
But I don't believe there's a lot of will coming from Dairy or Ligonier. And
Well, there is a, have you reviewed the articles of agreement, Mike? I'd be happy to give them to you. There is a-
No, I haven't.
Yeah, there's a formula in the articles of agreement that discusses how all funding is done. And obviously, everybody has equal votes. The joint area board, I don't think you were at the meeting at the beginning of the year, but the joint area board is made up of all the board members of all three districts, so we're 9 out of 27. And, but I'm hopeful. I mean, there's a request out there to hire an engineer and an architect to start doing a feasibility plan for the school. But we do run into the funding issues that are in our founding documents there, and that's one of the issues.
Well, and that's one of the reasons why I'm saying, let's use the money from the sale of the school. It's not like you're creating any new taxes by raising
well, I
taxes.
understand, but that money could also be used here at our homeschool.
Well, but we also have students from here.
I agree.
who go there.
That's why I'm on that board, because
And I know you understand that. You know, I had asked a question on the ownership of the building, and I did have the deed sent to me. And it's all equal.
Right. Yeah, I know. I asked the question
The
when they
three
returned.
school districts. I just think it's time to make a stand.
Well, I think Bill made quite a stand at the JLC meeting.
Bill and Steve.
Bill and
Steve.
Steve, both, yes, that's right.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's,
Steve's never allowed to go
our,
back.
our representation there has been doing a fantastic job.
Well, you know,
And I think that
that's
whenever they stood
fantastic.
up the JOC meeting, I think they expressed our concerns and our wishes. And I think it has to run its course legally. I mean, we're responsible for a third of it, and that's,
Well, Dairy and Ligonier have been good partners for many years. And, you know, I've done work for Dairy and I've done work for the JLC. So I would just encourage us all to give the process a fair opportunity and let the partners.
I do agree with Mike and with probably everybody else here. It's time. It's time. We have to do something.
Well, and I'm sure we're going to have further discussions, and especially after the feasibility study comes back.
Right.
But I still stand behind taking that money from the sale of the school and earmarking it for the technical center.
Well, it's definitely a real benefit to have that in our pocket, there's no question. And I certainly agree that that would be a great use for those dollars. I am a little concerned about just the memorandum of understanding, how this, you know, how the policy works, and that we not step on anyone's toes.
Well, you know, and I understand that.
I don't want to be the bull in the china shop
Well,
going in there.
I understand that, but at this point, I think that building is crying for help right now.
Mike has been crying for help since I've been on this board.
Exactly.
And I've been on this board for 16 years. And I've been on that board for 16
And I
years.
believe that, and I just think it's
And there has not been,
it's overdue.
there's not been a lot of will to do it. There's been a lot of discussion to do it.
Well, actually,
There's been a lot of
and I do
reports.
commend our members that actually have been sitting on that board for the last 20 years, 30 years. But it is that.
I think, personally, I think that would be a real boon to those students. It would be a real confidence builder to those students to have our three schools say, you know what, you guys deserve the best that we can provide, because what you're doing there is phenomenal work. And there are all kinds of jobs available for those kids. And it would maybe entice more of our students there, because there are jobs out there that are not being filled. They're hiring Hispanic students in the Hispanic immigrants in the manufacturing fields because they can't find. The average age of a machine tool shop guy is 54 years old, and there's not very many of them in the pipeline. So if America is going to be a builder again, we need those kids. Those kids need to be trained, and we need to get more of those kids in that building.
Absolutely. And that's
So I agree with you
what I'm
100%.
saying, William.
But there are policies in place that need to be respected.
I understand that.
That's all I'm saying.
But it just seems to me, in the last 10 years, 15 years, those policies have been respected. But now it's time to actually maybe be that bull in the china shop and actually make some changes. And I, believe me, I'm preaching to the choir, and I know that. But I would just like to see us do that. But I also have another item that I'd like to bring up. And I know 3 years ago, maybe even 4 years ago, I don't know whether this board was approached or the administration was approached for providing a fire science program through the center. Now, I'm actually I'm hearing a lot of different scenarios. I was a municipal official at the time, and I knew nothing about it. And I actually checked back with township supervisors as well, and they didn't. I actually talked to the fire chief from Latrobe, and he basically told me that it was kind of political, which I don't completely understand. Maybe somebody can fill me in what happened and who was involved from the fire service.
I think the first step was to meet with the parties that had brought it to the head. They wanted to, and I think what it was the community college organized fire, I don't know what they call it.
Yeah,
Is it fire science or? is it
Fire science.
It's a community college, whatever it is. And everybody was at this, there was a lot of people there at the table, of course not everybody, because the facilities were not available there. It's not big enough to do what they need to do. So the thought process was that they were able to use local facilities to utilize, to do that. And so therefore, it was to meet with individuals, stations, to make sure that who would participate in it and who would be interested in holding the class there and so on and so forth. And then it kind of fizzled out because there wasn't a lot of interest
that's
in
what
working
it's
together.
about.
Yeah.
There wasn't a lot of demand.
Yeah, there was not a lot of people that wanted to work together. So it kind of fizzled. And then there was some thoughts about maybe doing it in the evening, and that kind of fizzled also. So one of the big things in that whole thing is held up is basically facilities. If there is at one point in time a new building put up or whatever they decide to do, that may be a consideration that would be taken
Well, I think
by the
if
board.
we ever got to the point where we could get a new building or renovate this to the point that we could
Yeah.
expand it, that opens up a whole realm of possibilities. We
Well-
were talking about large operator class, training. There were all kinds of things.
That fills me in a little bit. Since 3 years ago, there's now a emergency management building out at the airport in Unity Township. Whether that facility is big enough to actually have a fire science course through the Eastern Westmoreland Career Technology Center or within the school district. And what's happening now with the fire service? And I have to commend the Board of Supervisors of Unity Township, what they did last week with giving tax incentives on property taxes and also earned income tax for firemen who act, and they have to do certain things to be able to get that type of tax incentive. But what's happening is there's a retention problem. And not only and why you have a retention problem is because when somebody wants to become a volunteer fireman, they have to go through so much training to get certified. It has become a chore within the last 10 years because of lawsuits. You have to be certified. So it's tough. And people are not getting interested in the fire service. And what's going to happen in this area if people, and our young people, if they do not get interested, taxes are going to go up in these municipalities. And they're going to go up, it'll be unbelievable.
Mr. O'Mark.
I think,
Excuse me one
go
second.
ahead.
I don't know, you may not be aware, I thought you were a board member when we recognized the young men and women, but we have embraced the junior firefighter.
I know you have.
program.
I know you have.
And I'll tell you that one of the reasons we've done that wholly is that this program didn't fly. Pete, Bill Watkins, the good people, they're out there in the township and the city came to us and said the exact issue that you have. We have a retention problem. And we knew that we had kids that were interested in volunteer firefighting. And I think it was just a couple of years ago that we recognized 30-some junior firefighters that are now a part of that that program and are being retained. And we invite them in to talk to our kids. Bill, I don't know, John, did you have a chance to talk to Bill?
I did, he's coming on April 12th.
We've actually morphed it now to the point where Bill Watkins is going to get into our science classrooms to talk about fire science. Yeah.
Well, that's fantastic, and actually, I was with the township when that program
Yeah.
started.
Yeah.
And it has helped, but the firemen are telling me they want to go to the next step. So I guess what I'm asking, if we can look into, looking into it again.
Well, I think, before we truly are able to get into it, we have to resolve the issues that were brought to the table previously. You mentioned Unity Township and using emergency management facilities. One of the concerns was, why should we go to Unity Township? So, you have that conflict, and it's a shame, but, so, I think that, but I think, not interrupting that, but I think that's why there was a big push for the VOTEC. Because everybody goes there, the students from Dairy,
Well,
Ligonier,
they don't
and
consider
Latrobe,
it dairy school, they consider it all three
Yeah,
centers.
exactly, so that was the big draw, so.
Maybe we need to look at this differently. Maybe we need to look at taking a smaller step. Perhaps something along the lines of the Young Engineers program with Kenneman. Maybe we have a program similar to that here for our students with the local fire departments that are in our school district using that facility over there. It's no further to drive over there than it is to drive to Kenneman. And so maybe we create a program like that.
Don't get me wrong, it's worth the conversation, truly, because there's a lot more ideas out there than.
Hopefully, if we could take that small step, perhaps it could then grow to include the other schools.
Yeah.
I mean, it might be something that's
I think-
more doable right now.
I think, Steve, as you know, you and I both were involved in the fire department for years, and we know firsthand what some of those hurdles are that we have to get over. So I think, a conversation needs to happen, and maybe rock our brains a little bit to see kind of ideas.
Could we find out if there is any credit in the fire science course and how we would have to get somebody certified?
You talking about a CTC approved program? A SIP
No, I'm
program?
saying even here. Is there something here,
Like a WCCC or a dual enrollment or something?
something like, for example, like when we go to the young engineers at Kennemetal, they're instructing along with our teacher who's certified in math, who could give them a math credit. What I'm saying is, what kind of credit, is there anything in the state chapter dealing with that, and what kind of certification would be needed?
And I'm not sure about that, only because of the age of the students that we would have and the requirement that would be, the certification requirement that they would need to meet that training requirement. I don't know that for sure, but
That's why.
There has to be more conversations, that's all.
Eric, did anyone look at the Central Westmoreland Career Technology Center?
Yeah.
Because they have
Yes.
they've had it in place for a
I
long
think
time.
they have protective services.
Yeah, it's protective
From what I
services.
understand, it's a waiting list to even get into their program.
It was not just fire, it was emergency, it was ambulance, it was all of it.
As Mr. Otasu is aware, the CTC offers what they call SIP approved programs, which are identified by the state. And protective services is a blanket of a lot of different areas, security and so on. I think that as we talked about the RFP for the feasibility study, which I know was shared with you, one of the questions that was brought up at the JOC meeting was, is it curricular related? One of the things that CTCs look at a lot is high occupancy careers. And one of the ways that grants are divvied out by the state is by what we call high occupancy careers. One of the issues with protective services, specifically fire service, is that in our area, these are not salaried positions. If our students are interested in working in fire service where they want to make a wage from it, they generally have to move to a more urban area or somewhere where, you know, that they're employed by the city or whatever. That's part of the issue, not that a program can't be offered to feed into our volunteer services, but if we're talking CTC, we have to be conscious of that SIP identification and what kinds of programs are being offered through there that would be what they call high occupancy careers. And I know Mr. Weimer does a much better job
Yeah.
describing that whole piece, but certainly he could give a better overview of the needs for that. So, and that's separate from, I think, what you're speaking on is a program here at the high school. I think the program that Mr. Grump is talking about, one of the big questions that I always heard about was bodies, right? Getting young men and women interested into the fire service as a volunteer kind of activity, and being able to recruit from within the high school and model the students that are presently in the building that are doing this service. They leave the buildings when they have emergency calls, they wear pagers and radios and so on. I really think that that has assisted greatly from what I've seen by the students that come here, and really, I think, help with that recruitment type of environment within the high school. I really do think, and I think that was started actually, Steve, when you were the principal. So.
And my thought is, in the course that I'm referring to, is not really getting any kind of certification.
Correct.
It's just to get them interested
Right.
and open the door to this possibility.
Fire
And then letting them go through the county fire school or through their respective
Which
departments.
might relate to an occupant.
Right, I'm looking at it more as just something to get them interested in the same way our young engineer program doesn't give them a certification in engineering, but it gives them a chance to see if they're interested in that area.
Yeah, you know, Steve, in a way, I think it's twofold, and everything that we've talked about tonight was retaining people or students after they graduate high school to actually still live in this area. And what that does, because we do have a dwindling population in the Greater Latrobe School District, no doubt about it. And I think what that would do is you know, if we can create jobs, believe it or not, talking about creating jobs, and I think we have the ability to actually try to do that. And if people are staying in this area, they're having children, they're going to our school district, the people are also volunteering. And some of them just may become volunteer firemen. And that would help the whole community.
And I think by having the course here, it's our way of also saying, we value this. You know, we value the men and women who serve in the fire service, so much so that it's part of our curriculum.
Thank you, sir.
Board liaison, board policy liaison, sorry, I missed
There's a board policy meeting set for Wednesday, March the 6th, at 1 p.m. in the administration office, and they're a very exciting meeting, so we have can't wait to get there, right?
On the edge of your seat.
Thank you, Mrs. May. Technology, the next technology committee meeting will be Tuesday, February 19th, 6:30 p.m. Oh, that's our, that's, yeah, that was canceled.
July 3rd.
So, yeah, to be determined. It will be 6:30, so I'm good with that. Superintendent's recommendation, Mrs. Byer.
I'd ask the board to move on resolution number 176, which is the approval of the resignations listed.
So moved.
We have a second.
Whichever one said you didn't take. They both said. So.
Oh.
Same time. We have a motion on the floor and second. Questions or comments on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion passes.
And I'd ask the board to move on resolution number 177, which is the approval of the additional substitute teachers for the 18-19 school year.
So moved. Second.
We have a motion on the floor and second. Questions or comments on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And that motion passes.
And I'd ask the board to move on resolution number 178, which is the approval of health room assistant Erica Crum.
So moved.
A motion on the floor and second. Questions or comments on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And that motion passes.
And I'd ask the board to move on resolution number 179, which is to approve professional personnel, Rachel Collette, Spanish teacher, step 1 bachelor's.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion on the floor and second. Questions or comments on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And that motion passes.
And I'd like to introduce Rachel. She's sitting in the second row. Please stand, Rachel. She is the person that has just been hired for our junior high school Spanish position. We appreciate her being here this evening, so everybody has an idea of what Rachel looks like. And we're looking forward to her starting as soon as possible.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rachel. And I'd ask the board to move on resolution number 180, which is the approval of the spring sports coaches and salaries listed.
So moved. Second.
Motion on the floor and second. Questions or comments on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And that motion passes.
And tomorrow night, here in our auditorium, is the 8th grade move-up night. It is a great night for all 8th grade parents and students, so I know the word has been out there. Our Breakfast of Champions is this Thursday, and the musical Last Call for Tickets is Man of La Mancha. It's March 1st, 2nd, and the 3rd is Sunday afternoon. Hopefully everyone can attend. Our parent conferences, teacher conferences for the spring are coming up on March 7th, 5 to 8. And the Polar Palooza at the senior high school, which I know everyone's getting excited about, is Friday, March 8th. Our meetings next month are the 12th and the 19th. Thank you very much. That's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Howard,
Yes.
before we leave other business, are we allowed to bring something up?
That's it. Pardon me?
Before we leave other business, are we allowed to bring anything up?
Sergeant.
May I just want to say that what Mr. Obardo did this evening, while it leaves a risk that we're going to disagree on things, I enjoy the opportunity to actually discuss issues openly and publicly on some of these matters. And I found that very refreshing. And I think it's important that even when we disagree, we show that we can disagree in a civil way. So I thank you for giving us that opportunity to have that discussion. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. At this time, I'd like to open the floor up to hearing of visitors part 2. This is where the audience can come to the podium, state their name and address, to speak of any concerns they have concerning the district. Seeing no one, I'll move for adoption of resolution number 181, adjournment.
Second.
A motion on the floor and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And that motion passes. Thank you very much.